and welcome to my August vlog. It is currently the 4th of August. I did intend to start this earlier, but I got a bit bogged down on editing my July wrap-up, which is the first video I edited, and having no idea what I was doing, it was quite a learning curve. I also learnt a lot about how I could improve my filming. So for instance, I would often move to turn my camera off before I finished speaking, or I would be moving while I was speaking, and all you could hear was the skirt I was wearing at the time, rustling and swooshing. It is a particularly loud skirt, but it wasn't something I'd even considered while I was filming. I also noticed that sometimes when I was talking, I would change topic, but because of my tone and how my sentences were structured, it sounded like I was talking about the same thing and that I hadn't moved on. And I think from a viewer perspective, it would probably be a little confusing, or you wouldn't pick up on the fact that I'd changed topic. I also need to speak a bit more clearly, although I expected that, as I'm often told that I mumble. So I did better than I expected there. There was just a few times when my wording was a little unclear. I can see a quality difference between my phone and other people's more professional equipment, but that's not really a surprise there. I do plan on buying a camera later on, but I don't want to buy one now in case I turn around and decide that I don't actually want to make YouTube videos, and then I've spent however much on a camera that I'm not using. I did buy a stand for my phone though, which you are currently sat on, and as you might be able to see and can hopefully hear, I did also buy a microphone, and hopefully that will get rid of some of the background noise as well, because I did notice some issues with that while I was editing the previous video. So basically all that was to say, I have a lot of ideas on how to make my videos better, and I'm sort of looking forward to seeing my progress. So now, more importantly, what am I reading? So I'm reading Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zeng by Kylie Lee Baker. I do have the book here as well, but you can't see the actual cover. So this is about a young woman who in the first chapter sees her sister pushed in front of the train. It's set in 2020 in New York, and we see Cora living with intense germ phobia in the middle of the pandemic. She gets a job as a crime scene cleaner. She's not dealing well with her sister's death, and she's trying to ignore the strange things that start happening around her. I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm not going to go into detail on what I've read already, as I spoke about it in my previous vlog. I'm also reading a second book, however I'm not going to tell you about that just now because my battery on my phone is low and I probably wouldn't get through it, so I will come back and talk to you later on. And I am back a day later, battery on my phone, and sat in a different place because I'm getting fed up of sitting on the floor. It's not very comfy. So now you are perched on my bed, and it's not the most stable of places, so I'm trying not to move too much so that you don't fall over. So as well as reading Bat Eater, I am currently reading King of Wrath by Anna Huang via audiobook. So I listened to the whole Twisted series last year and I really enjoyed it. So when I started fancying to listen to another romance audiobook, I gravitated towards this series. So this is the Kings of Sin series, and it is linked to the previous Twisted series, as some of the same characters appear in both series. So for instance, Dante, who is our male lead in King of Wrath, he makes a brief appearance in Twisted Lies. I think Vivian does as well in the same scene, but it's been a while since I've read it, so I can't quite remember. And then Christian, who is the male lead in Twisted Lies, he's been mentioned a few times in King of Wrath. But you don't have to have read the Twisted series to read the King of Sin series. It just seems to be a few overlapping characters, and I think the Valhalla Club is in both of them as well. So in King of Wrath, Vivian and Dante are heading towards an arranged marriage because Vivian's dad is blackmailing Dante. Neither of them want the marriage, neither of them like each other, and neither of them can be civil to each other for more than 5 minutes. So it's going to be an interesting marriage. Although, of course, I'm expecting them to fall in love and it end up amazing. Or as amazing as any of the relationships in this series are, which if I knew somebody who was in one of these relationships, I would probably tell them to run a mile. I'm not far into the book. So far, I'm not really liking Dante. He's a bit of a dick and I don't like how he is treating Vivian. I think he's treating her poorly because of the situation that they're in and because of her dad, but it's not her fault that her dad is blackmailing him. I don't feel it's really fair to be taking it out on her. He's obviously biased against her because of the arranged marriage and because of the actions of her dad, but he also looks down on her. I think this is because he feels that she doesn't stand up for herself and does whatever her parents say. It is true to some extent, but she does go against her parents in many ways, such as through her work, though I can't actually remember what her job is. But he's completely unsympathetic to her and doesn't hide his disdain either. And I suppose he is trying to find the blackmail material, which will then mean that he won't have to go through with the marriage. So he doesn't believe that they're going to be together forever or anything like that. So that's probably influencing his behaviour, because he won't see the need to be nice. But he could at least try. I imagine I'll start to like Dante more as the book progresses. And then if it's anything like the Twisted series, about 3/4 of the way through, he'll do something that I'll think is unforgivable. So that's all I've got to say at the moment. So I'll see you in a bit. Hello. I am back on the floor, the comfiest of places. I had started off updating you quite regularly, and now it has been nearly 2 weeks since my last update on what I am reading. I'm not sure what happened. Life just got in the way, but I am back. So I have now finished Bat Eater. I couldn't update you about it as soon as I finished, as I needed a bit of time to collect my thoughts around it. So racism was a theme that ran throughout the book, but it really ramped up towards the end. So I remember during the height of lockdowns and stuff, hearing about someone of East Asian descent in New York being attacked. And I know that racism increased a lot during this period of time. But when I looked into it further, thinking about this book, I saw that what I'd heard about had only been the tip of the iceberg, and that there was a number of attacks, and they're thought to have been racially motivated, and some of these ended up in death. So when I read some of what happened at the end of this book, I could see parallels to the real world, and I could easily see what happens in this happening in reality, minus the supernatural element, as unfortunately it's not something I believe in. So the ending was definitely something that I found eye-opening, and it left me with a deep feeling of sadness because of the parallels with the real world. I have listened to more of King of Wrath, which I am enjoying. I'm starting to like Dante more as we get to know him, and now that he's not being such a dick to Vivian. But I do like the people around him more, especially his housekeeper and Kai, and I think that Kai is going to end up with Vivian's friend Isabella, and that's probably going to be one of the other books, but I'm not sure. It's just a guess. So I'm enjoying watching the people around Dante disapproving of his treatment of Vivian, and how that they're all starting to realise that there's something between them, even if they're denying it. I don't really have much else to say about it. I'm listening to it on Spotify, and I'm currently out of audiobook listening time, so I have to wait for a week or so before I can start listening to it again. So it might be a little while before I update you on this. Then, as I wanted to listen to an audiobook while playing Tale of Ale, which is a game I am currently obsessed with, I started listening to Blood Slaves by Markus Redmond. I would probably say this is not the ideal audiobook to be listening to while playing a game. I don't think the vibes quite match up. I went into this book quite blind, and I'm finding that it's got more in common with Bat Eater than it does King of Wrath. Part of it was written during the height of the pandemic, and it has strong themes of racism, and when I say strong, I mean strong. So this is set in 1710, and our main character Willie is a black slave. I'm not that far into it, but seeing how these slaves are treated like they are not human. In the second chapter, a character, Charlie, is killed for stealing. And what did he steal? He stole himself. And by this, I mean Charlie tried to escape, and the slave owner, Big Jim, had him killed, saying that as Charlie is his property, that running away is stealing. It's hard to think about how owning a person was normalised at this point, and how people were seen as property and not as people. Unfortunately, I do see a lot of dehumanising language daily in media at the moment. So although we have come so far from treating people as property, we still need improvements, and we are far from perfect today. So then Willie meets a slave who is a vampire, and this is about where I am up to, and I am curious as to how there is a slave who is a vampire. I think in the first chapter we see this vampire Rafazi get captured, although my memory isn't great on this, so I could be incorrect. But if I am correct, then I wonder why he is still a slave, whether this is by choice or not, which sounds a weird thing to say, considering he's a slave. You don't really have much choice to be a slave. But as a vampire, I would expect him to have the ability to escape. So why hasn't he? So in regards to how people are treated in this book, it does not pull its punches. People are dehumanised, they're murdered, raped, abused. It doesn't fade to black or anything. It's very overt. So I guess it's just something to be wary of if you're planning on reading it. On a lighter note, I'm also reading a book about demons, with detailed descriptions of people being brutally killed and where a child is kidnapped by a demon. So this book is Demon Thief by Darren Shan, and it's the second in the Demon Arta series. So it's following a different character than the first book. It's following Colonel, and I think it's set before Lord Loss, which is the first in the series, as we meet a young Dervish Grady, who is the uncle of Grubbs in the first book. Grubbs being the main character in Lord Loss. So in Demon Thief, Colonel is able to see and manipulate pulsating lights, and in the first chapter, he moves these lights together, creating a portal, which he then goes through. A few days later, he reappears with no memory of what happened, and then shortly after, his brother is stolen by a demon and taken through another portal. At the time, there's basically what is a group of demon hunters around, and they follow, and Colonel goes after them, and now he's trying to get his brother back. Now, I have read this before, but I think it was nearly 20 years ago, so I don't really remember anything about it. But I have a theory, and I think this theory is based on the information in the book so far, but there is a chance that this isn't a theory, and it is something that I unconsciously remember from when I read it 20 years ago. So with that in mind, you can either watch on to learn my theory, or skip to the next timestamp. Or you can do whatever you want. The timestamps will be in the description. So this book is called Demon Thief, and it's assumed that the demon thief is the demon who has taken Colonel's brother out. But I think Colonel is actually the demon thief. So in the first chapter, before Colonel goes through the portal, there is no mention of that. But we do hear how lonely Colonel is and how this is having quite an effect on his mental health. Then when he returns, he is clutching his younger brother, who has apparently existed all along. But then when the police come to talk to him, his parents keep Art out of the way. And then when they leave town, because they move elsewhere, they make Colonel and Art pretend to be fugitives and hide in the footwell of the car. So I think that Colonel is the demon thief, having stolen Art from the demon world. So instead of the demon being the thief, Colonel is a thief who has stolen a demon. I'm looking forward to seeing if I am right or not, but as I said, although I don't remember anything about this book, I have read it before, so unconscious memory could have helped form this theory. So that was quite a long update. I will hopefully update you soon and have smaller updates. I will talk to you later. So I thought I'd do a different sort of update today and tell you what I have been playing instead of what I've been reading. So I mentioned in a previous update that I've been playing Tale of Ale. This is a game where you run your own tavern in a fantasy setting. So whilst the heroes are out saving the world, you are ensuring that when they come back, they have hot meal and a nice drink waiting for them. There is a adventure element to it as well, and you have your own quest to complete. I was expecting it to be a cosy game. That's quite incorrect, and it can get quite hectic. So I've been playing this with my partner, and while he's running the tavern, I'm out gathering resources, doing the quests, and killing things. So proper following gender norms there. And when I'm playing it on my own, I have a separate game, and I'm finding that it adds to the difficulty when you're actually playing it just by yourself. Although it could be because I find the running of the tavern quite hectic, especially when it gets busy and you've not yet hired your helpers. Then I've played a tiny bit of Dark Tides. This is a Warhammer computer game, which reminds me a little of Black Ops Zombies, as you're basically working as a team to fight hordes of these like zombie-like creatures. I don't know any of the Warhammer lore, so I'm not entirely sure what they are. So this game intrigued me, as I know a few people have played it, but now that I've started playing it, I'm not sure what I think. It feels like the game doesn't teach you enough to actually play it, and most of what I'm learning is what I'm being told by the people I know who play it. And even then, I'm finding there just seems to be a lot to take in. And I don't know whether I'll start liking it more once I've got a bit more used to it. And I've also been playing Witcher 3. So I don't play games that often, though apparently I'm playing more at the moment. I've been slowly making my way through the Witcher games, seeing as I've watched the TV show and I've read the books, so I might as well play the games as well. So I played the first 2 on computer, and I'm now playing the third on the PS4. I enjoy the games, but I'm finding I'm not as much of a fan of the third one as I am the first 2. And I think this is because it's such an open world. And I'm quite a completionist, so I want to try and complete all the quests. And I find that completing all the quests get a bit harder when you're on an open world game. Although I think I've actually been starting to enjoy it more now. So although I used to like the other 2 games more, that might actually be changing. I guess I'll find out by the end. So that's all that I've been playing recently. I don't usually play as much as I have been the past week or so, but I think I needed a break and decided to spend that break playing games. So because of that, I reckon the next update will probably be about books again. Hello, so I'm just popping in to say that I have finished Demon Thief by Darren Shan. I enjoyed it, although I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. I think I'm going to give it a high 3 stars. I can't really tell you much about it because spoilers. Anyway, it was a good ending, but it was a little bit sad. I do hope that we get to see Colonel in later books, although I do wonder how old he'll be, as time moves differently in Demon Worlds, and he could be spending some time there. I'm planning on reading Slaughter, the next book, next month, but I think that is back with Grubbs, who is our main character from the first book. But I will let you know more about that when I start it. And that's all I really wanted to say, so I will come back and talk to you about a different book later on. So I have now started reading Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. I'm only about 30 pages into it, but I'm mad. So I don't like our main character, and I don't like the world that she lives in. So it is set in the future, and humans are not the only intelligent life in the universe. So something has happened which has nearly wiped out all humans, and our main character's people don't just want to keep the human race going, but they also want revenge for what happened. So I'm not quite sure how to pronounce our main character's name, but I've been calling her Kerr. So Kerr is considered one of the warrior breeds, and this means that her genes make her perfect for fighting. So if this is raising red flags for you, then let me just raise them further. So eugenics is ripe in this community. The community is highly militarized, cultish, racist, and elitist. And your role in this community could purely be to breed. So as of yet, I'm not sure whether this is just the particular group of people that we are following in this book, or whether it is the same in the wider society for humans. There has been some mention of people leaving and people who are not part of this community, but they are all treated as traitors, and at the moment, anything that we are told about these people, I don't believe, because of who is telling us this information. So our main character, Kerr, she is perhaps the most indoctrined of any of the characters that we've met so far. So she believes that her people, specifically the warrior breed, are superior, and that it is their duty to get revenge, and that it's the breeder's duty to breed, and so on. And she is that indoctrined that there are a few times when characters seem to show some suggestion that they don't fully believe the thinking of the group, but she completely misses it. And I think this is because for her, there is only one way of thinking, and that is the group's way of thinking. And any other thinking doesn't seem to exist for her, so she misses any signs that other people might think differently. But of course, she is aware of dissenters, and that the dissenters think something different than her. And she would probably be the first person to do something about it if she thought that people didn't agree with the group's way of thinking. But it seems that she misses the subtle signs of this. I could be wrong though. I'm only 30 pages in, and it could be that I am putting my own way of thinking on these characters and seeing things that aren't there, as opposed to her not seeing things that are there. So I had been hoping to read something a bit lighter, as it seems that I'm reading books with quite a few dark topics at the moment. But I guess this book might not have been what I was looking for. Though what I'm expecting is that the way this community works is going to be completely blown apart, and that our main character is going to grow across the book. So maybe this book will become more hopeful as it goes along, and it won't leave me feeling quite as sad as some of the other books I've read recently. I'll keep you posted. Hello, it is the 7th of September, and I am now finishing my August vlog, a little bit late. So I was a little under the weather towards the end of the month, and that's why I'm so late with ending this vlog. So I will quickly run through what I read at the end of the month. I'm not going to go into any detail, just because that will appear in my wrap-up, and I don't want to repeat myself. I'm feeling a bit lazy and can't be arsed. So I think last time I updated you, I had just started Some Desperate Glory. I finished it. I enjoyed it, gave it 4 stars. I was right about the character not noticing things around her. And I think there's actually a point where another character says to her that she's jealous of her because she doesn't see what is going on. And also, as I guessed, the character's reality is turned upside down. She starts to see the flaws of the world she is in, starts to see how she is helping this system. And it ended up being quite an adventure. And then after reading this, I read The Will of the Many. This is Roman inspired, and it follows Viz, who's an orphan who comes from a group of people who were conquered by whoever these people are called, I can't quite remember. And he then gets adopted by someone who wants to use him to find out what's going on in school after the person who adopted him's younger brother died there previously. And it was a really enjoyable read, and I can see why so many people raved about it. I felt that there was something missing from it though. I liked the characters, and I connected with them, but I don't feel I connected with them enough for it to be a 5-star, but it was close. So as well as that, I was partway through Blood Slaves. Just like the last two, was another 4-star read for me. It started off really well, and towards the beginning I was thinking that it would be a 5-star, but then I think it just didn't pull through with the ending, and it was a slight letdown, but still like good enough to be a 4-star. And as well as that, I listened to King of Wrath via audiobook. That one I rated 3 stars. It was a bit of a letdown. So I've read the Twisted series previously, and I really enjoyed that. But I found that each book, it sort of followed the same projectile, where you've got like the 3rd act breakup. I found in the Twisted series, usually the male character would do something that I would find unforgivable. But in King of Wrath, I found that what happened in the 3rd act wasn't unforgivable. In fact, it was just one where I'm wishing the characters would just get over it and get back together. You could tell that they both wanted to be with each other. But Dante is lying to himself as well as to Vivian around wanting to be with her. And I just found it a little tedious. So it wasn't my favourite by the author. And I'm hoping that the rest of the series picks up a bit. There is also the chance that the reason that I didn't enjoy it as much as the others is because the books are quite similar and perhaps I'm getting bored of this. But I guess reading the rest would give me more of an idea as to whether it is just this book or whether it's that I'm bored of the premise of these books. I guess we'll find out when I read the rest. So I think that's all I read at the end of August. As I said earlier, I'm not going into detail around it, as I will do a bit more in my wrap-up. And I hope that next month I'm a bit more on the ball with posting updates and whatnot. But considering it is the 7th and I've not started, that might not be the case. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I like vlogs. So I might do a couple more to see how I feel about them. And then if I don't like them, I might look at doing shorter vlogs. Or I might do like themed vlogs or something. But I guess it'll depend on how I find them. So that is the end of my August vlog. So you all know the drill. Like it if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if you've read any of the books I've mentioned in this vlog, then drop a comment and say what you thought of them. I think it's been a fairly good reading month for me. Didn't read as much as I liked, but the books that I read were mostly 4 stars, so it was a good month. And I'll see you in the next one.